Where are my presents, Santa? I couldn't find it anywhere!
Ho ho ho! You have been naughty all this year, Karen, so no gifts for you!
You can't do this! I demand to speak to your manager, Santa!
Maybe next year if you behave well, my child! Merry Christmas! Now, for every likes this video gets, one Karen will receive empty box of presents under the Christmas tree. So please, smash that thumbs up and notification buttons. To the story. Get the gas pump yourself and stop being a jerk to the lady. I'm not normally very confrontational with other customers when I'm out, but this one slipped out. I went to a nearby convenience store one evening a few years ago to get cigarettes for myself and my wife. I walked into the store and get in line behind an old, grubby looking guy with a bad attitude. The cashier asked him if she can help him. He says he wants to put some money on one of the pumps. She asks him, which pump? He rudely replies, I don't know, I don't work here. Maybe it was the years of dealing with rude customers in the food service and call centers industries, but without even thinking, I blurt out, why don't you go outside and check instead of being a jerk to her? Grumpy guy spins around, points at me and yells, mind your own business. I was a little dumbstruck, not because he yelled at me, but because I was still processing the fact that I spoke up for someone. To his credit, Grumpy Guy sticks his head out the door, yells to one of his companions for the pump number, and returns to the counter and completes his transaction. When I get to the counter, I notice both women behind the counter are staring at me. I don't know if they were scared of me, shocked that Grumpy Guy was so rude to them, or shocked that someone had defended one of them from a rude customer. I do know that it felt good to put a jerk in his place. Well, I wish I had the guts to do that even if it did slip out. High five! To the second story. Me, I don't work here. I need to find my dad. Lady,
oh, you do work here. You will help me.
Okay, so my father and I went to Walmart to pick up a couple of things. I went off to the clothing section to pick out a couple of new tops. This lady comes out of nowhere, grabs my arm, and proceeds to tell me that I need to help her to find some things. I think, okay, maybe she just needs another opinion. I do that and she starts dragging me around Walmart. I tell her I need to find my dad, and she says,
oh, don't lie to me. I know you work here.
I'm baffled. I'm not even wearing a uniform. I proceeded to tell her that I don't in fact work there. And she starts going off on me, saying that she knows that I do, and at this point my dad comes up and asks me what's taking so long. I tell him and he tells the lady the same thing. I do not work there. Okay, she doesn't believe my dad. We find a clerk. She will have to believe someone who actually works there. Nope. Not even believing the clerk. We had to get the manager in order to even get the lady to let me go. Wow, how deluded do you have to be when it takes 4 people to tell you that you're not an employee? To the third story. Park in employee parking versus I'm not an employee. I'm female and was 24 at the time. This happened over the course of a few weeks about 2 years ago. I was working as a construction/design engineer for hospitals, plumbing, and air conditioning. I work for a company that is hired by the hospital, not for the hospital itself. My company had been hired to do an ER renovation on an old hospital, and the plans for existing building were really old and damaged, or just didn't exist anymore. As low man on the totem pole, I got the fun job of going out to the hospital to document/investigate the existing building. Lots of going up on ladders and looking above the ceiling to track down pipes and ducts and such. Because this was an ER, and therefore 24 hours per day, we had to time our investigation for non-busy times, namely 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. In the middle of the week, I was also working my normal office hours. Because my job offered overtime or in lieu hours, and I needed the overtime pay, college loans, lol. So for all these interactions, I was exhausted and just didn't give a crap. So, on to the story. I had to park in the hospital parking garage on the top floor to be out of the way of patients and visitors. I had finished early because an emergency had come into the ER and I had to get out of the way. I had some extra time, so I decided to close my eyes for a little bit before driving to the office, when I was woken up by a tapping on my window. A man was peering in the window. We will call him Parking Dude, PD. I waved at him, thinking he was just making sure I was alright. I was sleeping in a hospital parking lot. PD gestured for me to roll down my window, so I cracked it to hear him better. He gruffly declared that employees are to park in the back lot or on the street. If that's full, next time I'll have you towed. He then turned and marched back to his golf cart, which he blocked me in with as I called out, "I don't work here." He left, and I left and went to work thinking it was a one-time deal. Little did I know, over the next few visits, I came back to my car, find increasingly angry parking tickets about parking in employee parking from now on. They were printed on an A4 and very obviously homemade, with a blurry hospital logo and a word art "parking enforcement" across the top. The notes threatened booting, towing, and demands for my supervisor's name so I could be reported. I wish I still had them to share with you. My coworkers and I had quite a laugh over them. I even left a note on my dash saying that I was an employee, and the next ticket had a rant about lying and that "you'll be written up for lying once I get your supervisor's name." Then, one morning, I came out to find PD waiting for me. He had blocked my car with his golf cart and was grinning at me like a cat who got the cream. I walked up to him and PD said, "Employees have to park in the back lot. You're in so much trouble. I demand to speak to your manager." Yes, he really said it. "Give me their names and number and the department you work for. I won't let you leave until you give me your manager's name." He did have my car plugged in. I tried to explain that I wasn't an employee. I pointed out my outfit, work boots, jeans, safety glasses, and a tool belt with flashlights, tape measures, lasers, and a clipboard with my drawn plans, and told him that this is where hospital admin had told us to park. But he insisted that my disguise wasn't going to trick him and demanded to speak to my manager. I was so exhausted and wasn't really up to arguing, so I just pulled out my business card and my boss card and handed them over. I had told my boss about this and he just told me to ignore it, as he had confirmed with the hospital that is where I supposed to be parking. This dude pulled out his phone and called my boss and reported me. My boss, an older gentleman who is also president of the company, later told me that he had told PD that he had to let me leave or he was calling the police. When the dude hung up, he told me, "I'm letting you leave this time, but next time you park here, I'll boot your car and find your real manager's number and report you. Some trick with your friend won't work." He got in with his golf cart and zoomed away. Luckily, my boss found this whole thing hilarious. It was about a week before I went back. Bad weather equals to busy ER equals to no work for me. And I was almost done with my task. I would be back after construction started, but it's all on hold now because of, well, COVID-19. I had finished for the day once again and headed out to my car to find he had, sort of, done what he had threatened. There was a thick chain looped through the handle of my driver's side rear door and a cinder block all tied together with a large padlock. I knew this guy was a bit nutty, but I also figured out that he didn't have any real authority, so to find this half clever, half poorly thought out ball and chain attached to my car was a bit of a surprise. Now, I got into engineering because I like solving problems. I actually don't really like math, even if I'm not half bad at it, and this wasn't a particularly complex problem. I simply rolled back my window down and lifted the cinder block and excess chained into my car and then drove away. I passed PD on my way out. To say that he was shocked was an understatement, and I gave him a jaunty wave as I drove by. It was a cold drive back to my office with the window open, but it was worth the look on his face. When I got to the office, I had to go in and sign out the bolt cutters and was followed by a parade of my coworkers to see it for themselves. I had to go back one more time and I was eager to see what PD might do after his last plan failed. I came out to find he had tried the chain and cinder block bit again. This time he had wrapped the chain around the bottom of the wheel a few times and had the cinder block tied pretty close to the wheel and chained through the handle again. It was definitely chained in a way that would take a lot more ingenuity to get out of. Or a pair of bolt cutters I hadn't returned to the office, just in case. I cut through the chain, unchained the car, and then loaded the whole lot into my trunk. PD must have been causing problems to some other person because he only pulled up as I was backing out of the spot. He blocked my car again with his cart and jumped out. He came to my window and I did roll it down just to see what he had to say. Hey, where are the chains? How did you get loose? This is stealing. Is it stealing to take the stuff he attached to my car? I will have your job for this. I never did hear the rest of the rant as I yelled, Magic, and I'm not an employee. During a pause for a breath and drove around his cart away. It was the most dramatic exit of my life and will probably never be topped. It was my last day there, for now, and I've since gotten a new car, so I'm not sure if I will run into PD again. I'd like to think he's still puzzled over how I managed to unchain my car. My boss did lodge a complaint, but I don't think anything came of it. Well, I think OP should have reported this overblown power junkie. He probably still does this if someone else hasn't got him fired for the same reason. The fourth story, Asian restaurant equals to Asian workers, right? About a year ago, my dad and I were waiting in front of the host stand at a Mongolian barbecue. It was pretty busy, so we were waiting a while. As we were standing at the podium, another family walks in and is gathered at the entrance. A few minutes go by before the mom of the family walks up to my dad and goes, are you going to seat us? We have a party of 6. Mind you, my dad and I are both Asian, but we were clearly on the customer side of the host stand and we were dressed very casually. My dad is caught off guard and doesn't know what to say. I'm trying my best to not burst out laughing, but I'm very much laughing at both of their faces. Immediately after, the white blonde hostess takes us to our table. We take one more look back, and Miss Party of 6 looks like she just peed her pants. It was a delightful meal cooked by our 4 Puerto Rican gentlemen. Well, that was surely an embarrassing moment for Karen. The fifth story, a positive I don't work here lady. Bit of backstory about me. I breed ball pythons and I'm obsessed with them and other reptiles. I was in my local reptile shop, which is run by a guy who is one of the biggest BP ball python breeders in the area. He's always giving me killer deals because I've bought so many BPs from him and always chat with him for a bit. The guy is a legend, so I like picking his brain. I see a woman in her 40s checking out his various BPs and ask if she has any questions. The store was busy and I love helping people out in the hobby. She tells me her son wants a snake and that she's gonna get him one. So first off, rock on, Mom! My mother would never do this. In fact, I was told no on wanting a snake by her my entire life, so it's really cool that she's supportive. She asked me what the difference is in all the snakes, which, for someone like me, I see past the lesser GHI 100% HET pied, and I know what that means, but the uninitiated will be clueless. So, I explained to her what morphs are and how some affect color and other patterns, etc. I tell her she doesn't need anything with HET because she's not breeding. She settles on a gorgeous leopard, yellow belly, and thanks for my help. We both walk up to the counter, and I need feeders and she needs to have someone to get her animal. When we get to the counter, she tells the owner how wonderful his associate is and wants to make sure my good service doesn't go unnoticed. The owner said, "Oh, OP? He doesn't work for me, but he knows what he's doing and he's a great guy. We had a laugh and she suggested I start working for him, but I make way too much money with my day job. Anyways, felt good to be appreciated. Well, surprisingly wholesome story, just in time for Christmas. To the sixth story, 3 in less than 5 minutes. For my job at a grocery store, I wear an apron. For some reason, I have yet to divine. I love my apron. I wear it home and put it on before I head to work. It has pockets. Why wouldn't I love it? It has caused me many problems, however. My aprons for my current job is dark blue. In my past, however, I worked at a craft store who gave us aprons that were originally dark green. Then, they moved to bright, hurt your eyes, why God, green. One day, a few weeks ago, while on my way to my grocery store job, I stopped by the craft store to pick up a few things for a Christmas project, while wearing my dark blue apron. In the time it took me to walk across the stitch aisle and pick out my threads, I was stopped by 3 different women who asked me about the location of the different items. As I said, I used to work here, so I was able to give them approximate locations, then apologize and point out that the apron I was wearing was not, oh God, why green, and instead a lovely deep blue. Each of the women blushed, apologized, and parted ways with a laugh. By the time the number 3 was leaving, I ripped off my apron and hid it under my jacket until I got out of the store. Well, in OP's case, you are bringing it on yourself. An apron in a retail store screams, I work here, ladies! Come over here! On to the final story, my Starbucks encounter. Oh lordy, this isn't quite as crazy as some that I've read, but has me heated. So the local Starbucks is on severely reduced hours due to a skeleton crew and COVID. It is located in a good-sized strip mall. I got off a 14-hour overnight shift and needed a quiet place to pump. I'm breastfeeding my baby. I pulled into the strip mall near Starbucks and pumped. For reference, I had myself covered pretty well and drive a large SUV, so it's not easy to tell what I'm doing. I also had my hoodie covering most of my actual pump part. I also made a point to park a minimum of 4 empty car spots between me and anyone else. This old guy, 40 to 50s, get out of his car and comes towards mine yelling. I crack my window, it's winter and it's freezing here. Him, it's about time you got here. Do you know how long I've been waiting for my coffee? Me, I'm sorry, but I don't work here. Him, what do you mean you don't work here? It's 8:30 and I want my coffee. You should have been here hours ago. How long will I need to wait? He's getting closer to my car. I cover myself even more. I should say normally you can barely see any skin when I pump, but I completely covered because I didn't want some random old man seeing anything at all. Me, I don't work at Starbucks. Please leave me alone. Him, are you kidding me? There's no excuse for this. There's no reason for you to be close. What are you doing? Me, please back away from my car. Him, I'm calling the cops. You're exposing yourself to me. That is illegal and gross. I'm going to get you fired and arrested. Me, oh, please do. Please call the police. According to section XYZ of Law ABC, it is not illegal for me to breastfeed or pump anywhere my child is allowed with the exception of a religious institution. This is a public parking lot. While I worship coffee, it is not a recognized religion. However, insulting and causing problems for someone while breastfeeding or pumping is a crime. And seeing as how you're only acting threatening while I'm technically breastfeeding, there's a pandemic and you're also breaking the social distancing rules, which can get a hefty ticket here. All of what I said is true. My lactation consultant gave me a little card that cites the specific law that protect nursing mothers and the place where pumping is allowed. I keep it on me just in case because I was nervous first time mom. Him, I'm calling the police. Stumbles back to his car. I moved my car further away. 25 minutes passed. Starbucks was still closed. I finished pumping in moderate peace. He kept watching my car, and unfortunately, no police showed up. I almost wish I could have switched it up on him,
but wasn't going out of my way for that. I never did get that coffee. I also must be fired from Starbucks for never opening and serving this upstanding patron his previous coffee. The kicker? A Dunkin' Donuts was literally across the street. Another Starbucks was about 2 miles down the road as well. But he waited over 30 minutes for this one. I kinda wish the police would have showed up too. That would have been fun to see, the look on the guy's face when the police laughed in his face.
Ho ho ho, that is it for today, my good humans. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, or no cookies and milk for you. Merry Christmas. See you guys next time.